Hello everyone and welcome to my Soap Twist 24 channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. Luna Nozawa became entangled in a nightmare she never imagined in the deep underbelly of Los Angeles, where the sparkling facade of Beverly Hills concealed secrets darker than darkness. The bold and the beautiful had always been a world of glitz and mystery, but for Luna, it had become a prison of sadness. It began with a whisper, a tip from an anonymous source regarding abnormalities at Forrester Creations' experimental medical division. What began as a normal investigation quickly escalated into her imprisonment, shackles stinging into her wrists like cold serpents, and the shocking revelation that her mother, Lee Finnegan, was also implicated. What are the charges? Medical fraud, tampering with life-saving therapies, and a plot that endangered lives. But underneath the headlines, Luna's narrative was one of great, searing sadness, a tale of a daughter betrayed by fate, love lost in the shadows, and a family torn apart by unbearable truths. Luna had always been the dreamer, the artist in a family of physicians and businesspeople. Adopted into the Nozawa clan, she bore the burden of unsaid abandonment, her biological origins a mystery that tormented her drawings and sculptures. Her adopted mother, Lee Finnegan, was a rock of strength, a great doctor who had saved numerous lives at General Hospital. Lee's marriage to Jack Finnegan was a beautiful illusion, but Luna could see the flaws. The late nights, the whispered disagreements, the way Lee's eyes would glaze over from tiredness. Luna admired her, seeing Lee as the biological mother she wished she had. They spent quiet moments in Lee's messy home office, looking over medical papers, Luna's fingers tracing heart diagrams while Lee recounted the wonders of transplant surgery. "The heart doesn't lie, Luna," Lee said softly. "It beats for truth." Luna had no idea those words would ring like a curse. The trouble began when Deacon Sharp, ever the opportunist, came across encrypted files during an illicit rendezvous at the hospital. He was there for a nefarious transaction, but his curiosity led him to Lee's secure server. What he discovered shocked him: fabricated patient data, experimental medications redirected from genuine trials, and cash funneled to offshore accounts. The focal point was a prototype treatment for congenital heart abnormalities, which Lee had championed as having the potential to change pediatric care. But the trials were rigged, with side effects hidden and successes inflated. Deacon, anticipating a controversy, leaked it to the media, but not before alerting the authorities. The FBI swooped on Forrester Creations like a storm, where Luna worked as an intern in the biodesign lab, which combined art and medical innovation. Luna was drawing prostheses that afternoon, her hands covered in charcoal, when agents burst in. "Luna Nozawa, you're being arrested for conspiracy to commit medical fraud." The words faded as shackles were fastened. She shouted for her mother, but Lee was already in arrest across town, pulled from an operating room mid-procedure, her scrubs bloodied from a patient she couldn't rescue that day. The media frenzy was immediate. Luna arrested. Lee Finnegan in handcuffs too, shocking medical crime exposed. The paparazzi crowded, flashes blinding Luna as she was pushed into a van. Detectives grilled her in the cold, sterile interrogation room. "Your mother altered trial data and you initial drug shipments. Explain." Luna's world fell. She had no idea. The shipments were normal and signed at Lee's direction. But her signature doomed her. Luna's anguish became deeper as the days and weeks in pretrial custody passed. The cell was a gloomy tomb, and the air was thick with misery. She remembered Finn, her half-brother from Lee's tangled past, the one family relationship that felt pure. Finn, who is married to Steffi Forrester, has always been her confidant, and their sibling bond has been developed in secret. But now he looked through the glass, his face filled with pity. "Mom swears it's a setup, Luna. Someone framed her. Maybe Sheila Carter's ghost stirring trouble again." Sheila was the fabled villainess, long assumed to be dead but whose shadow lingered in every story twist. Luna clung to hope, but evidence piled up. Emails from Lee's account directing falsifications, and Luna's lab notes corroborating with contaminated batches. The medicine had killed children. turning innocent hearts that had been stilled by a miracle into poison. Luna grieved alone at night, picturing those small faces, her innocence tarnished by association. Lee's trial was held first, and it was a spectacle of betrayal. In court, the once stoic doctor burst into tears as prosecutors displayed wire transfers to a shell firm tied to Ridge Forrester's rival. It was for the greater good, Lee cried on the stand. The drug worked in 90% of cases. The failures, we hid them to secure funding. Luna knew nothing. However, hearing Lee's confession broke Luna's heart. What about the larger good? Our lives being sold for legacy? Lee alleged coercion, threats from a corporate spy, possibly Thomas Forrester's machinations, but the jury found greed. Lee was convicted and sentenced to 20 years in prison, with her white coat removed and replaced with prison orange. As she was let out, she made eye contact with Luna in the gallery. "Forgive me, my girl," she said. Luna turned away, and the tie was severed. Now it was Luna's time. Without Lee's assistance, she faced her own hearing. With a public defender by her side, she claimed ignorance, but the prosecution presented her as complicit, a willing part in her mother's business. Witnesses from the lab attested to her excitement for the project and her signatures on do not destroy orders for damning files. She was the artist's touch, one observed, making death seem beautiful. Luna's sketches, which had previously provided her peace, were filed as evidence, diagrams romanticizing the drug's effects, hearts sprouting like flowers. The irony stung. Her work, which was supposed to heal, condemned her. Luna's thoughts turned to lost loves in the silent hours leading up to the verdict. There was R.J. Forrester, a lovely guy who had captured her heart during a design collaboration. Their relationship was short, with furtive kisses in the atelier and visions of a life free of family conflict. However, after the story arose, R.J. distanced himself. "I can't be tied to this, Luna. My family is also under fire." His rejection cut more than cuffs. Then there was the unborn child, a secret pregnancy resulting from a one-night affair with a visiting artist, which was aborted in secret to safeguard her career. She had not told anyone, including Lee. Now alone, that ghost plagued her, a what-if of purity in the face of decay. The judge's gavel fell, convicted of lesser counts, 5 years probation and community work in a victims' rights organization. Freedom, yet hollow. Luna, released into a world that perceived her as tainted, walked the streets of Los Angeles, the city lights mocking her demise. Forrester Creations rejected her, and friends vanished. She rented a dismal flat on Skid Row, the walls covered in her previous sketches, which were now stained with tears. Nights were spent awake, haunted by visions of Lee in a jail, gray hair untidy, hands idle without scalpels. Luna sent letters that Lee would never receive, expressing her grief. "Why didn't you protect me? Was I ever more than a signature?" Rehabilitation came through mandatory therapy, when Dr. Elena, a sympathetic shrink, dissected Luna's psyche. "Your sadness is layered, just like your art," Elena explained. Layers of desertion, beginning with biological parents and progressing to Lee's aspirations. Luna reminisced about her childhood visits to Lee's hospital when she was enthralled but afraid of procedures. Lee had pushed her into medicine, calling art frivolous. "Save lives, Luna. That's true beauty." But Luna's soul desired canvas over cadavers. The scam was Lee's guilt, but Luna's cooperation arose from a desperate yearning for approval. She witnessed true hardship while doing community work at an underprivileged children's clinic. There, she met Mia, a 7-year-old with a heart abnormality who was waiting for a transplant. Mia's drawings were primitive yet bright, depicting stick creatures with throbbing hearts. Luna taught her to shade and give depth. Luna had a glimpse of atonement in Mia's eyes. But when Mia's donor heart arrived, tainted by a batch from the controversy dating back to Lee's trials, Luna wept in sadness. The child survived very barely, but the coincidence crushed her. "Your mother's poison lingers," a nurse said quietly. Luna escaped, promising isolation. Years blurred. Probation ended, but sadness lingered like fog. Luna remade herself as a street artist, painting murals of fragmented hearts on alley walls as homage to the victims and anonymous apologies. She avoided the Forresters, Finnegans, and the spotlight. Finn communicated seldom, but trust was broken. Lee's appeal was denied, he'd explain. She's fading. Luna once passed through the bars, Lee weak and mumbling apologies. I did it for us, to secure your future. However, futures were ashes. One stormy evening, Luna stood by the Hollywood sign, the wind tossing her hair as she contemplated the void. A stranger approached, an old lab colleague turned whistleblower. The full truth: it was Bill Spencer pulling strings, using Lee to sabotage Forrester meds for Spencer Publications' gain. Vindication arrived too late. Lee died in prison from heart failure, an unfortunate ending for a cardiac expert. Luna scattered her ashes in the Pacific, where waves claimed the woman who shaped and broke her. Luna's specific anguish became clear in calm reflection, not only loss, but the erosion of innocence in a world of beautiful falsehoods. She launched Hearts Unmasked, a small gallery that displayed works inspired by agony, such as canvases depicting shackles interlaced with stethoscopes and tears used as paint. Visitors arrived, captivated by the raw emotion. Luna found a fragile piece, a survivor damaged but still standing. In dreams, however, Lee's voice echoed. The heart doesn't lie. Her heart pounded on, heavy with pain, a witness to love's cruelest betrayals. In a surprising turn of events on The Bold and the Beautiful, Lee Finnegan becomes involved in a web of duplicity and moral conflict that threatens to shatter her profession and familial bonds. Once a distinguished doctor, Lee's protective impulses drive her to make a decision that could cost her everything. The story begins with Luna Nozawa, a young woman with a rough past who becomes embroiled in a medical and legal conflict. Luna is assumed dead as the result of a botched surgery and accompanying cover-up. However, in a frantic attempt to protect Luna, Lee devises a strategy to keep her alive and concealed from the authorities. This decision initiates a series of events that spiral out of control. As Luna recovers in secrecy, the Forrester family and the general public are oblivious of the reality. Lee's acts, while motivated by a mother's love and a desire to protect Luna from the harsh realities of the legal system, come at a high cost. Her medical license is put at risk, and her connections with family members deteriorate. The once respected doctor is now a fugitive, hiding from the people she previously helped. The emotional toll on Lee is enormous. She struggles with guilt and terror, knowing that each day that passes without revealing the truth increases her role in the deceit. Her relationship with Luna, while anchored in love, becomes a cause of internal strife. Lee wonders if her actions are actually in Luna's best interests, or if they're simply a reflection of her own worries and desire to protect. The situation approaches a boiling point when Luna's location is accidentally discovered. The discovery causes shockwaves across the Forrester family, resulting in confrontations and emotional reckonings. Lee is forced to confront the consequences of her actions, and the family must decide how to go in the aftermath of the truth. Finally, Lee's story serves as a painful reminder of the intricacies of love, commitment, and the moral quandaries that arise when confronted with hard decisions. Her journey demonstrates how far a mother will go to protect her kid, even if it means sacrificing her own happiness and well-being. It emphasizes the timeless conflict between right and wrong, as well as the gray regions that constitute the human experience. The sirens rang in the distance before they arrived at the hospital parking lot. Their crying sounded like sadness itself, an unwavering shriek that cut through the early morning. Inside, Lee Finnegan stood transfixed in the dim hallway of the medical wing, her white coat flecked with blood and antiseptic, her shaking hands holding the edge of a clipboard she no longer needed. It was over. The truth had caught up with her. The walls that had formerly kept her safe, walls of authority, accuracy, and respect, were suddenly closing in, speaking her faults back to her in the sterile hum of fluorescent lights. She had spent her life shaping her identity around excellence. As a surgeon, Lee believed in order, control, and the quiet arrogance of science, which gave her the feeling of invincibility. Mistakes were made by others, those who were not diligent enough, lacked discipline or conviction. But that night, while Luna lay still on the chilly surgical table, everything she thought she knew about control vanished like sugar in water. It had started months before the arrest, when Luna first appeared to her, nervous and frail, yet full of a sweet resolve that reminded Lee of herself before the world hardened her. Luna had been assigned as an intern in the trauma unit, and she was wide-eyed and eager, frequently staying late to observe Lee do surgery. She exuded the kind of awe that made Lee feel like a deity, a sensation she had discreetly developed an addiction to. But there was something else beneath the admiration, a brokenness in Luna's eyes that Lee couldn't ignore. When Luna fainted one morning while assisting in an emergency procedure, Lee found herself more terrified than she'd ever acknowledge. The scans indicated a rare neurological disorder that might be treated, but carried significant risk. Luna implored her not to tell anyone, including her family, supervisors, and the foresters who supported the research division. "Please," she begged, her eyes glazed with desperation. "I can't miss this opportunity. If they find out, I'll be sent away." Lee paused. The rules were explicit, and the protocols were absolute. But sympathy can obscure even the most disciplined heart. She promised to treat Luna privately and surreptitiously, without hospital supervision. What began as mentorship quickly became an obsession, a shared secret that bound them together in guilt and hope. For weeks, Lee kept an eye on her in a makeshift lab, fabricating equipment, tweaking dosages, and documenting every response in code, so it couldn't be traced. It was not legal. It was not even ethical. But it was amazing, and for a while, Lee allowed herself to imagine that genius made everything okay. Luna ceased breathing for the night. Lee had taken the treatment too far. In her hubris, she ignored the warning signs, the tremors, the rapid heartbeats, and the faintness Luna attempted to conceal. When her patient's vital signs dropped, Lee's first thought was survival, not grief. She could not risk losing everything she had worked for. Not her license, reputation, or identity. So she did something inconceivable. She concealed Luna. She informed the hospital that Luna had been sent to another institution for observation. She fabricated the documents, destroyed the security footage, and used her credentials to transport the body to an abandoned storage locker on the facility's outskirts. But death, Lee soon discovered, has a curious sense of mercy. It does not always take what it is owed right away. She returned hours later to sweep away the evidence and discovered Luna breathing again. Weak and bewildered, her pulse was feeble but present. Lee's knees buckled as she realized what she'd done, buried someone alive in her own lie. It was both a miracle and a curse. From that point forward, she was bound to Luna by something worse than love. She nursed her in private, away from prying eyes, convinced herself that once Luna recovered, she'd figure out how to set things right. But mending did not come easily. Luna's experimental treatment had altered her, leaving her with fragmented memories, frightening dreams, and outbursts of wrath. There were evenings when Luna screamed Lee's name, accusing her of things Lee couldn't stand hearing aloud. Nevertheless, Lee persisted, because stopping would mean confronting what she had done. The truth came out, but not because Lee confessed. It was because Luna ran. Luna, overcome with bewilderment and pain, wandered into the emergency room of the same hospital Lee once reigned over. She was disoriented, trembling, and murmuring bits of the truth. The secret lab, the injections, the blood on the floor. Nurses summoned security, and within an hour, Lee's world crumbled. The police arrived with inquiries that she couldn't answer. Her co-workers regarded her with scorn, incredulity, and a tinge of treachery. When the shackles were eventually fastened around her wrists, Lee did not protest. The metal felt chilly, but curiously, it was also relieving. For the first time in months, she did not need to conceal. The courtroom had a subtle smell of old wood and chlorine. Luna sat opposite from her, slim and pale, her gaze avoiding Lee's. The prosecutor referred to Lee as a reckless scientist who played God, while her defense attempted to portray her as a caring woman who made a mistake out of love. Neither version felt accurate. She was neither a criminal nor a martyr. She was something more complicated, human, flawed, and fiercely clinging to her ideas until they choked her. Luna wept throughout her testimony. "She saved me," she remarked quietly.
"But she also destroyed me."
Lee looked down, unwilling to face her sight. The statement penetrated deeper than any language could. Following her conviction, she was transferred to a penitentiary medical institution. Her license was cancelled and her reputation ruined. The peaceful buzz of equipment that had once soothed her now insulted her in the sterile silence of her confinement. She reflected on the procedures she'd conducted, the lives she'd saved, and the colleagues who formerly respected her. All of it came down to one mistake, a moment of misplaced mercy that led to disaster. The hardest aspect, however, was not the loneliness. It was Luna's absence. Despite everything, she misses her. The sound of her laughter, the way she used to sing under her breath while sorting surgical trays, the tenuous trust that had held them together. It tormented Lee like a ghost. Sometimes she dreamed of traveling down the corridor of her former hospital and hearing Luna cry her name from an empty room. She'd wake up sweating, gripping the thin blanket, as if it could bind her back to the world she'd left.